Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dirty 30 Chats podcast. My name is Sarah, I'm your host, and I'm so excited to bring today's guest onto the pod. This has been not a long time coming, but I guess brewing in my mind. I would love to bring Greta onto the podcast, and we made it happen. So I'm really thankful for Greta's time. Greta is a degree qualified naturopath that specializes in sexual, reproductive, and hormonal health, who works with thousands of women to help them reclaim their power and autonomy by guiding them to understand, to trust, and to navigate their own bodies and cycles through every stage of life. As someone who's been her patient for years now, navigating my own health concerns as a female, she has been amazing. And that's why I was like, Greta needs to come on the pod. There are very relatable stories and a deep sense of passion in everything she does to help women, I guess, rebalance their vaginal microbiome to really tackle hormonal health concerns or sexual health concerns. And yeah, the passion and the knowledge that comes together is just fascinating. So, in today's chat, expect to hear all things health in our 30s as cyclical women, ways to support our hormones and our own vaginal microbiome, ways to understand common symptoms and things that may be starting to cause a bit of a red flag that maybe we haven't gone deep enough into, and just giving a bit of insight on things that we can look at by working with a naturopath. A very big and common thread for women, girlies in their 30s is obviously fertility. So I definitely wanted to bring that topic to the pod. It's something that myself, I've navigated as a 30 something year old when I was still in a long term relationship, and now as a 34-year-old who is no longer in a relationship. And it's, the $1,000,000 question. So I want you to get as much juiciness as you can from this episode with Greta, and I really hope you enjoy. Welcome, Greta. I'm so excited to have you on the Dirty 30 Chats podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I thought today, before we dive into all the juicy topics that I know you've got so much wisdom to share, I kind of wanted to tap into your journey into naturopathy and what first drew you into this career path.
Yeah, so I started studying naturopathy when I was 21. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with life. I was in that awkward time where you don't really know what you want to be or what you want to do as a career. I went traveling a lot. I was sort of just figuring out what I was interested in. And during that time in my late teens, 19, 20, 21, I was diagnosed with celiac disease, and I got really into looking after my own health and looking at labels for food and cooking. And I had to really take a lot of my own health into my own hands. And then I sort of just stumbled into naturopathy. I moved to Melbourne from Canberra, and my original studies were going to be in nutrition. And I started a nutrition degree at Endeavour College of Natural Health. And I realized nutrition wasn't the only thing. I could do a lot more if I also learn about herbs. So then I started studying naturopathy. It's a 4-year degree, but no one ever does it in 4 years. And so it ended up being an 8-year degree for me, which was really great because I worked the whole time that I was studying. I worked in health food stores and other clinics where I got a lot of experience. So by the time I finished, I knew a lot of the products. I knew how a clinic ran. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And about halfway through my studies, I started suffering with really recurrent thrush and BV. And I felt like I'd done everything to try and figure out what was going on. I went to the doctor. It's a really similar story to a lot of my clients, but I went to the doctors, went to specialists, went to the gyno. Everyone just said, oh, you've got thrush, fluconazole, fluconazole, fluconazole. It got so bad that it ended up causing a lot of really serious pain for me, and pelvic pain that actually kind of mimicked endometriosis. So a lot of the doctors were thinking, oh, you've probably got endo. The next step is a laparoscopy, which is a bit scary. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was so bad that a couple of times I ended up in the emergency room. And I distinctly remember one time going to the emergency room at 3 a.m, could barely move. I had such severe pelvic pain, really deep pelvic pain. And I waited for a couple of hours, finally saw a male doctor who did an examination on me. He didn't look at all at my vulva. He didn't touch my abdomen at all. He just did a bit of a sort of pressing on a lot of parts of my body. And when he pressed on my shoulder, I spasmed, and he said, "Oh, you've got referred shoulder pain."
Oh.
I said,
What?
"So my vagina's on fire, but thank you."
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it was just a nightmare. And then I did go to a naturopath as well. And at the time, through no fault of naturopathy, but we just didn't have a lot of tools. We didn't have a lot of knowledge. There was not a lot of research into the vaginal microbiome. So the tools we basically had was put yogurt on a tampon and insert it into your vagina. I think a few of us have had that one before, or
Yep.
insert a garlic clove. So that was all
Mm-hmm.
I really had. About 2 years into that journey, a male partner had symptoms, and immediately they actually tested properly and did a lot more thorough testing and found out that we had a stealth infection called mycoplasma genitalium, which is an STI. And so that was treated properly with antibiotics. And then we had to do a lot of work. I did a lot of work to rebalance my vaginal microbiome and build up that beneficial flora. Never had an issue since. But
Wow.
yeah, it was a big learning for me, and it sparked this huge curiosity into the vaginal microbiome and really realizing that we just didn't have enough tools. And I really would have liked someone who really understood that. And I remember when I was starting to say to people that I want to specialize in the vaginal microbiome and want to really dive deep into vaginal health. And people used to say to me, "You don't want to pigeonhole yourself. You don't want to just be vagina girl." But I wish I had vagina girl. So I think actually it was really needed.
Absolutely. And oh, it's so crazy. Like it's bringing throwbacks, I guess, from personal experiences too. And I would be surprised if a woman listening to this has never experienced any kind of vaginal infection, call it, whether it's more UTI symptoms, thrush, BV, whatever it is. It is out there. It is so common. And I think the most fascinating thing sometimes in these cases, hearing about your career path is from pain comes purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's that lived in experience that ignites this fire. And then you actually provide that in service. As one of your patients that I've been working with you for years, it was the first thing that you feel the understanding, the empathy, the let's tackle this together. And there's almost a sense of empowerment because you've gone through it, you've come on the other side, and you're like, we can actually work on this, which is, at that point, you've probably lost a lot of hope, whether you're in pain, discomfort, ongoing recurring symptoms. And yeah, I think it's so fascinating. And also referring to that point of when you kind of tackled that niche, I think that was kind of like that shift that was starting to happen in the natural health world, where I don't think vaginal microbiome tests were a thing, 4 or 5 years ago, were they?
Yeah, they weren't. When I was going through my vaginal issues, there was no testing that we could do apart from doctor's swabs that are not super comprehensive. When I started practicing is right when the vaginal microbiome testing came out. And now we have a lot more thorough microbiome testing than what we had even when I first started practicing. So it's come a long way. And I think I really sort of started diving deep when the research started happening as well, which was really cool to see how things have changed even over a few years.
Fascinating and so needed, like you were saying at the beginning. Like this is a very common thread in women's health. What would you say are other common symptoms, concerns, issues that women tend to come to you for?
I think the most common symptoms that people come with, often they think that they have thrush or BV because we know a lot about those two conditions. And most people have heard of them. So usually people will come saying, I have thrush, or I think I have thrush. A lot of the time it's something else. It might be a different kind of vaginal imbalance, or it might be thrush or BV, but a lot of the time that's not the primary concern. I often say it's like a symptom of something bigger going on. And that might be like I had the stealth STI. There are a lot of sexually transmitted microbes in that kind of category. microplasmas and ureaplasmas, which can really just like snowball the rest of the vaginal microbiome, becoming very imbalanced, and a place where those opportunistic bacterial or fungal infections can thrive. So I'd say they're the most common is people come with BV or thrush, or they're the type of people who come where they've done all their own research. They've been down every avenue. They know exactly what things they have. They just haven't had the right treatment yet.
And yeah, even understanding those mixed type of infections, right? It's not black or white. There's that gray area there, which I guess, would you say that your first step when someone comes to you with those kind of symptoms is testing and getting that vaginal microbiome test done?
Yeah, I'd say that's always my first step. I don't like to just guess and just throw things at an infection that we don't know is there and that we don't know exactly what it is, especially with natural treatment. Even people think, oh, it's herbs, there's going to be no harmful impacts. It's not true. Any kind of treatment that you do, you need to be very specific and know exactly what you're treating, because a lot of the herbs and other treatments that we use, they might be perfect for one microbe, or they might actually just spur on other microbes. So we want to be really specific in what we're actually treating. So first step is always vaginal microbiome test, unless they've already come with a comprehensive test. And if they do and it's 6 months old, we test again because it's so changeable.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the common disruptors, I guess, in this age right now, in the 30s, in the current world that we're living in, that really affect that vaginal microbiome?
I think one of the main things is just how many chemicals we have in the world that we live in today. There are so many like forever chemicals, yes, microplastics, things like that. But think about all the sprays that are used on things like cotton, and then we're using cotton underwear or cotton pads and tampons, and they have endocrine disrupting chemicals in there, or sprays because they're cotton. So we're just absorbing chemicals all the time, and on that really, really absorbent, like delicate tissue of the vulva, that's where we don't want chemicals at all. So those things can disrupt a lot. Anything that can disrupt the pH. So sitting in underwear for too long, not breathable. It's another side of the fabric conversation, is not using very breathable underwear. All those spandex, all the tights that we wear, Pilates, and we wear them all day. And then also things like how much earlier people's periods start. These days, people's periods are starting when they're like 9, 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How
And
come?
I assume because of all the endocrine disrupting chemicals we have. It's a lot of lifestyle things as well. Like think about the mums' lives and how stressful they are these days, and how much cortisol and blood sugar imbalance and all of those things are impacting the menstrual
Mhm.
cycle, and then babies as well, and egg quality.
Wow, that's fascinating. I
Yeah.
actually had no clue that that was something that was starting to happen.
Yeah. So they're menstruating for a lot longer, but when you're starting earlier, you're probably going to stop earlier. And so it's my thinking, just from what I've seen in clinic and from experience, that our fertile window of life is probably shifting more early,
Wow,
which would make sense if we're menstruating that early.
absolutely. It feels like maybe we're going back into like medieval times where we're regressing in a way.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild how much the outside world and the environment can really impact our hormones.
Absolutely. What are some of the common hormonal concerns that people come to you? You've mentioned endo before, and I understand there's also PCOS, and there's all these kind of like concerns at the moment that feel like they're kind of getting at least more awareness. There's more topics of conversation around them.
Yeah, there's a lot more awareness, especially around endo these days. I do see a lot of endometriosis, but I tend to see a lot of endo that hasn't been diagnosed and that might not be like a typical presentation. So when I have someone who is coming to me with vaginal concerns or sexual pain, and they don't think at all that they've got endometriosis, but they're not responding to our normal treatment. So we do a lot of herbal treatment, we target the microbes, and the microbiome just keeps shifting in a negative way. Usually there's a hormonal component to that. So endo can be one of those things, because if we think about the endometrial tissue, it's creating its own estrogen in situ. In the actual tissue, it's creating its own
Wow.
estrogen and it's not breaking it down. So those people usually tend to be the people with higher estrogen, and then we'd call that like an estrogen excess. And the way that the menstrual cycle goes, we have this huge peak of estrogen at ovulation and then about 7 days before our period. So if we're getting vaginal symptoms in those times, then we probably need to look at estrogen. And if we don't tackle the endo side of things, then we're not going to get enough movement with those symptoms. We're just going to be chasing this cycle.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the most common things that I see, because I see so many vaginal presentations. I also see a lot of PCOS and even things like hormonal acne, anything that can kind of disrupt hormones or have a hormonal presentation.
And it's also interconnected, right? Like it's one thing is triggering the other, and it's that domino effect that you, I guess, as a naturopath, then have to look at that bigger picture. And that's probably why people rely on naturopaths rather than a GP that will just go straight to one point.
Exactly. You have to look at the whole picture. And also, I'm kind of looking at clues. So your main concern is thrush, but we've got, you're always craving sugar and you're always tired. Maybe it's blood sugar imbalance. You always get you get really heavy, painful periods and short cycles, and you always get your symptoms around ovulation. It's all of those things that are clues that the bigger picture is what we need to work on.
What would you say some of the common things that women might think are normal in their vaginal health, but that are kind of like red flags for a naturopath, being like, we should actually be looking at this? Do you hear this often? People coming to you thinking things are normal, but they're actually a bit more of a health concern?
Yeah, there are a few things. I'd say one is any kind of sexual pain. Pain during intercourse is not normal. We should not be feeling pain during intercourse unless it's the first couple of times and we're just getting used to things. But you shouldn't have serious pain in that situation either. But any kind of sexual pain where you've got irritation or swelling or pain afterwards, or where you have like that deep penetrative pain, they're red flags and we need to look into why that's happening. Also, things like discharge. A lot of people say, oh, I don't know what normal discharge is, but my discharge is just always really watery, kind of smells. And we're like, might be a little bit of a flag for BV. Anything that people are experiencing really chronically, they tend to normalize it. So, I've always had a little bit of pain after I urinate. That's just normal for me. Like, it's not normal, but it might be common.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, I guess that's also a sign of the level of sexual health education that we've all received, right? And how much of a taboo it is that you probably haven't gotten curious or felt comfortable to ask other people, to ask an expert, because it's so normalized within. And I guess it's not really, yeah, that insight as to, oh, this shouldn't be like this.
Yeah, exactly. And I noticed that more with the older generation. And I do see a lot of older women, so 50 plus and 60 plus, they're a lot less open with talking about those things because they just never talked about it with their parents or with their peers. And so when they all of a sudden go through menopause and all of a sudden things are dry down there, it's very taboo for them and they feel a lot of anxiety bringing that up and they feel like there's something wrong with them. But this is a really normal physiological process, but there's so much we can do to support that kind of sexual pain or that kind of dryness or whatever they're experiencing, but they carry a lot of shame because of the era they grew up in.
Yeah. Would you say that's actually really fascinating hearing you talk about working with more older women in their 50s or 60s? Has that been almost like a new segment coming to you in recent years?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably half of my client load is older women because they finally realize, there are people that can help me and not just give me the estrogen cream from the doctor or whatever it is. And a lot of those people are dealing with much more chronic issues that they just haven't felt comfortable to talk about before. And a lot of them are on like Instagram, and they're on the internet and they're searching, so they can find people that can actually help them.
Yeah. And speaking of, I guess, age groups, as millennials who were, when we were developing as women, I guess the pill, the ring, all that kind of hormonal contraception was given so freely. Do you feel like there's still a vast majority of women that rely on hormonal contraception, or have you felt like in the years of your practice, there's definitely been a shift towards more natural methods? Where are women sitting at, I guess, with contraception in general?
Yeah, I guess the people that I see, they are seeking more naturopathic support. So there's definitely a lot more push that I see from my client base that they don't want to be on hormonal contraceptions, and they're craving that, knowing their natural cycles and feeling everything and knowing when they're ovulating and knowing when they're having a period. Whereas I guess there's probably still a lot of people who do rely on hormonal contraception, but they're not typically the people that come to see a naturopath. So I definitely, my client base is moving more towards natural contraception.
Yeah. What would you say are some good habits, I guess, as especially women in our 30s, where there's obviously a hormonal shift, there's body shifts, there's things that are clearly shifting, good practices, not just vaginal health, but also hormonal health.
Yeah, there's a few key ones and things that you can do that are totally free as well. So, for hormonal health, nourishing your body properly, eating enough. I think we really don't get taught how much we need to eat. And we go through this kind of stage, maybe in our 20s, and then in our 30s, we realize, oh, I need to eat a bit more, or I feel really crappy and really tired. And we've all heard, a lot about how much protein we should be eating now. But it's not just protein, it's fiber and it's carbs. We need carbs, we need good fats. We need all of those building blocks to actually make our hormones as well. So, eating enough and eating regularly, not skipping breakfast, not having coffee on an empty stomach, having coffee after food, and even things like regular blood tests, getting regular blood tests with even just with your GP, things like hormones and more comprehensive blood tests, usually that you need to pay for those out of pocket. But even just making sure we're not iron deficient, we're not B12 deficient, and we're looking into anything that feels a bit off, or heavy bleeding or excessive pain, things like that. Looking at your chemical exposure. Are all your cleaning products chemicals? Are all your products that you put on your face and your body, are they all chemically derived? Can we shift to be more natural in the home so that we have less of that chemical exposure? And that also goes into swapping all your underwear for organic bamboo. I know that's my favorite,
Mhm.
or organic cotton. And there are a lot of options out there that don't break the bank as well.
Yeah, that's probably been one of the best shifts I could do. And also, I don't know if you encourage this, but not wearing undies at all at home. It's a funny one, but it's like it feels good and it helps everything breathe. Yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a toxic Kmart pajama. Mm-hmm. Is that quite a bit of like controversy between bamboo and cotton with the amount of breathability in the fabrics, or are they pretty even in the sense of like you could go for either or as long as it's good quality?
Yeah, bamboo is more, it's more breathable. So bamboo, there's lots of studies. They say anywhere between 4 times to 10 times more breathable than cotton. But bamboo is the more breathable option, definitely.
Hmm. Now, I think we've covered everything vaginal health really nicely, and we could continue for hours. But I think the next big question, the $1 million question that I was so keen to get chatting to you about was fertility in our 30s.
Hmm. Big topic.
Big topic.
Yeah.
And for anyone in their early mid 30s, whether they're single, in a relationship, and are not taking that step, I feel like that question is probably dropped in many times, very frequently. Now, do you often see women in their 30s coming with that anxious thinking pattern around motherhood in their 30s? Is that something that you're seeing in practice?
Yeah, that's something I see very commonly, actually. And a lot of the time I see my clients who I've seen for a couple of years, we're working on vaginal health or hormone health, and then it shifts to big focus of preconception. And it's something I've noticed a lot recently, actually. A lot of women in their 30s wondering about egg freezing or wondering about just preconception support if they do have a partner. It tends to be around that sort of early 30s and then 35 where people start to think, oh, I should be really thinking about when I'm going to have kids now. And I think the anxiety comes more from when people are single and they want to make sure that they're optimizing their fertility for when they're ready, because they're not all, especially this day and age, people aren't really ready to have babies at the start of 30, and there's a bit of a shift in moving towards wanting to start your family later, late 30s, even early 40s.
Which is really empowering to see as someone that's single in their mid 30s. I love seeing women owning that and showcasing that because it is doable. And I guess for someone, let's say more towards their mid 30s, single or with a partner that they might not feel safe enough to take on that next challenge as parents, what would you say are some things that we can start looking into in our health to, I guess, add a bit of security, add a bit of peace of mind, I guess?
Yeah, peace of mind. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of testing that we can look at. And I find that testing and having that data and showing people you are ovulating, you are producing a great amount of progesterone, it gives them that peace of mind that, oh, I am still fertile and I'm going to be fertile for a while, especially when you have that deeper understanding of how to explain hormones, because we can test a lot of different hormones. So I often test, we might have done this together actually, yeah, yeah. I often test FSH and LH, which is follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Those two are the hormones that are produced by our brain that talk to the ovaries, and they sort of like kickstart ovulation. And they can tell us a lot about how much we are still prioritizing ovulation. And it doesn't mean that's just you for the rest of your life. It means, oh, maybe stress is impacting us a bit and we need to strengthen that brain to ovary connection. Then it gives us a point of, where we can guide treatment. Or it tells us, oh, your body's really prioritizing ovulation still, and that's good. Then we can also test estrogen and progesterone. I usually test them 7 days after ovulation. This tells us about how much progesterone we're producing from ovulating that egg, if you like, or oocyte, and then how much estrogen we have that's being produced at that time. And estrogen is really important for the uterine lining and creating a nice, comfy, safe space for the fetus to grow. So looking at those, specific ratios between estrogen and progesterone is also important and can tell us a lot about the quality of ovulation.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it's the quality of ovulation as of now, but obviously it's not a future thing. So, what could be good practices or things to keep in mind to just maintain that healthy level of hormones?
Yeah, so getting a good picture of where you're at now, and I'll also add that adding in AMH, which I'm sure everyone has heard of before, they call it like the egg count test. I don't agree with that name. It's more about how many follicles we have that are sort of ready to be ovulated now. We can increase AMH. It's not the rest of the eggs you have left in your life. It's just where we're at now. And so once we have a good picture of what our AMH is, what our ovulation is doing, and all the other things, blood sugar balance, cortisol, your androgens, testosterone, things like that, then we know how to really support you and what you need to work on. Sometimes we actually need to increase estrogen, and maybe we need to look at either, really depends on what the presentation is, but it comes back to those real pillars of eating enough, managing our stress. Maybe we need to include some herbal support or supplements to maintain hormonal balance. Or, yeah, maybe there's some other lifestyle or specific dietary stuff that we need to add in for that person. It's very individual.
You touched on stress there. It's a huge one, right? And especially when we're coming in with the worry already brewing inside our body, where we kind of wish we had a little crystal ball that someone could tell us, yes, you can wait 3 years and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And we kind of come to Greta and we're like, Greta, give us the answers.
Yeah.
It's a huge one, right? And I guess it links almost to a bit of an energetic block that you can also reach. Do you find that that happens?
Yeah, that people sort of get the idea in their heads that their time's running out. And that's when the anxiety can kind of take over. And then that stress is going to impact our hormones as well. So I definitely do see that. I think the more people understand their hormones and the more data and testing that we have, the calmer they usually are. And people like to know that they're doing something about their health and that they're not just leaving it, and that we know and we have the answers and we know where everything's sitting now. And then if the goal is to try and conceive in a few years, then we regularly maintain that testing. We might also add in things like egg quality support for a couple of years just to maintain the health of the eggs or even improve the health of the eggs so that we can know that we have a little bit longer to wait.
Mm-hmm. Would that be something that you would recommend, for example, to someone that's single, or more if you were already in a relationship and thinking of that plan in some years' time?
Either. With where I'm really thinking about boosting egg quality is if you're single and you know that having children is a goal for you, then we want to be thinking about that even when you're single, especially if you are thinking about egg freezing. That's when we really want to optimize the health of those eggs. To optimize our outcomes with egg freezing and the egg collection process. When we have a partner and we know that, in a year we're going to start trying, or in 2 years we're going to start trying, then we make a bit of a plan for those years.
Definitely. Would you bring in the partner into that plan, or do you, is that a...
Yeah, ideally, yes. It's much harder to get the partners to come to a naturopath. Whenever I see men, it's usually a husband of one of my clients or a partner of one of my clients. Usually, at least if we can give them the same support that the female has, usually they're very similar nutrients that will increase sperm quality. So I'll usually give a lot of advice around increasing egg and sperm quality that they can both do. So the good thing is it's all habits that you're doing together. So you can clean out all your cleaning stuff and get all natural cleaning products and swap to natural fibers and reduce your chemical exposure. And then the things like the diet stuff, adding in more antioxidants and things that are going to support egg and sperm quality, partners can do that together. So there's lots of things that will bleed into the partner's life. But we also need to think about if he has had any sperm quality testing as well. And usually I'm also looking into sperm analysis for them too.
Mm-hmm. Which is so crucial, right? It's a 50-50 here.
It's 50-50. Yeah. It didn't used to be. It's 50-50 now. Yeah.
True. It's so important. And I guess even the mental load, right? As women, we want to fix it and have it all under control. And yeah, it's definitely something to share. In terms of egg freezing, are you seeing an increase in women doing this? Is this more single women in relationships even? What are you observing there?
Yeah, I guess I'm a millennial too. So I guess I'm noticing that people of our age are thinking about egg freezing a lot more, but I don't know if they were maybe thinking about it the same, but I was only 20, so I wasn't noticing. But I've definitely noticed that, especially in my age group, and even younger, like, 28 onwards, I'm seeing a lot more people thinking about, should I freeze my eggs? I do think we get pushed a huge narrative with the IVF clinics, and they make a lot of money, and they are pushing a lot of, you need to freeze your eggs, it's your best chances. But I do think it's a good tool, and I'm glad that we have egg freezing, but there's so much that we can do to also naturally increase our fertility. But I understand that people want to have that backup plan and want to know that they have those eggs there. But the thing to understand with egg freezing as well is that just because you've collected 20 eggs, that doesn't equal 20 babies. And that 20 eggs might equal maybe 2 babies. And so I think it's really important to understand the risks, and that we're sold yes, freeze your eggs. And you think, oh, I've got all these eggs, but a lot of them might not be viable. A lot of them might not even make it to their freezing process. Will they actually become like embryos once they're introduced to sperm?
I would be so curious to know how many of the women that do egg freezing actually make use of those eggs.
Yeah, there's a lot just sitting there when they don't need them. And then when they go to try naturally, they might just conceive naturally as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is also, it's a huge cost. So it's something that it breaks my heart sometimes to see that there's a lot of people who just yearn to have a baby and it's their calling in life. And they're the people who don't earn a lot and they put their entire life savings into freezing eggs. And they might not ever need them, but it's tens of thousands of dollars and ongoing cost to keep them frozen as well. It's a huge burden, like mentally. Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah. In every way, I guess, like your body, even because you're stimulating your ovulation, so you're taking in hormones, you self-administer injections. So there's definitely a lot
Yeah.
to process, and especially if you're doing several
Yeah.
rounds of them, right? And then if you don't get enough eggs out of one round, the deceit. So yeah, it's huge and definitely not to take lightly. With, I guess, the way the human brain works, we need to grasp onto something that gives us a sense of control, right? And I guess in so many
Yeah.
cases, even as a 28-year-old, I think of it now as a 34-year-old. And if you're healthy and
Mhm.
thriving, I'm like, save that money and go traveling, you know? But I guess it's that sense
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
control that we need sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on where we're at, that gives us that peace of mind.
Yeah. And that you're feeling like you're doing something about it. Yeah. It is that control and knowing that you're looking after your health or you're future proofing. Because what if you so desperately want babies in your early 40s and then it gets a bit trickier?
For those women that are, I don't want to use the word, but I want to bring it just to make fun of the word geriatric mothers. So
Over
over
35.
35. So from next year on, if I have a kid,
Yeah.
I will be a geriatric mother. Love that.
Mhm. Yeah.
For those women that we know we would like to be mothers and we're kind of that like past the mid 30s, right? So in those 5 years leading to our 40s, and then we start getting thrown perimenopause and menopause. And so there's a next big shift happening. What are some things that, I guess, from your perspective, might help bring a bit of peace of mind and calmness? And yeah, I guess understanding that navigating of, say, if I was to be a mom at 38, but I start having perimenopausal symptoms soon after, like how does that kind of look in women in that age group?
Yeah, so I think the important thing to realize is that perimenopause can start as early as, 35 or even
Mm.
earlier, but that's the very, very early stages of perimenopause. And peri lasts for a long time, 10 to 15 years before you actually start going into more late stage perimenopause and then menopause. And it's not this slow decline of estrogen. It's not that we start here and we go like this. It's actually more like it goes really high and then it goes into estrogen chaos where we're up and down, up and down. And then we start producing a lot of that FSH and LH and actually ovulating more when we get towards later stages of perimenopause. So we kind of get this big increase in let's push out the rest of the eggs. Let's like the last ditch effort to get pregnant.
The final
So,
countdown.
yeah, the final countdown. So it's not that we become less fertile or that we're not ovulating as much, because we actually have this other kind of resurgence later that it becomes almost easier to get pregnant. But then we need to think about the declining quality of the egg. So the biggest focus for those people who are wanting to get pregnant between sort of 35 and 45 is focus on all the things that are going to protect the quality of your eggs, all the antioxidants, not drinking, not smoking, looking after your health as much as you can, because the health of your eggs is what's going to determine the outcome of your fertility journey.
I love that. What, for example, if we talk about nutrition, which I guess is an easy one to just bring a few foods. Obviously, again, everyone's body works differently, but a few foods that could help in that journey.
Yeah, I guess the biggest kind of easy one for everyone to access is thinking about like that Mediterranean style diet. So lots of antioxidants, lots of olive oil, good quality olive oil, things like oily fish, salmon, tuna, but any fish really. And lean meats, really simple. Lean meats, protein, have your fiber, have your veggies, just simple eating, but making sure that we're actually eating 3 square meals a day. We're hitting about 100 grams of protein a day. And then also there's antioxidants like berries and fruit. It's not hard. It doesn't have to be superfoods and expensive supplements. It can just be eating a really nice balanced diet and good quality veggies and fruits that are going to be really nutrient dense, shopping at your local markets, eating seasonally. All of those things are going to help how much nutrients you take in.
Totally. We tend to overcomplicate it,
Yeah.
hey? And sometimes it's just, yeah, stripping back to
Yeah.
basics where it's just like, you can do this. Anyone can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Just looking after your body as the vessel.
Awesome. Well, that's all my questions done for today. I am so grateful for your time and for your wisdom. I could continue listening to you talk about all these things for hours.
So we could chat for a few hours.
Yeah, but I'm sure there will be a lot to take from this chat for anyone listening. So, yeah, I just want to say a big thank you.
Thank you for having me.